The greatest myth, and I really feel strongly about this, is the greatest myth being told in the financial space is the younger you are, the more risk you can take. And I get it. I understand why people say that on the surface is because if you're young, you have time to make up for losses. But think about it this way. Risk is simply a function of chance of loss, right? That's it. Go look it up. The definition. If you go, taking on risk means you're increasing your chance of loss. So only in the financial space do we coach people to say, hey, if you want to increase your chances of success, you've got to increase your chances of loss. It makes no sense. It just doesn't. Hey, what's going on, cash flow hackers? It's Chris with Life 180, and for this video, we're going to be talking about the 5 money mistakes that people make that hold them back from reaching the financial results that they want in their life faster on a more timely basis, right? Like I'm a big believer and I'm really passionate. I've been doing a lot of research and study on this specific topic lately about the fact that people are just kind of being duped into this mindset that they got to go to school, get a job, invest in their 401k and kind of wait until they're 65 to be able to retire. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's one of the reasons I wrote my book, Cash Flow Hacking. However, in this video, I want to talk about 5 specific mistakes that people are making that are holding them back from reaching these results faster in their life. So let's just get into this. Reason number 1 is the fact that you're not starting soon enough. I know I made this mistake. If I could go back in time into my 20s and know what I know now and know it then, my life would be a completely different place. Ironically, I made a ton of money in my 20s playing poker for a living. I was a top 100 ranked poker player in the world online. It was an amazing time. However, I blew a lot of that money. Let's face it, the life of a poker player, at least in my 20s, back then, traveling and doing poker tournaments and going to nightclubs and just the life that comes with that was kind of a mess, honestly. But a lot of wasted money, and if I could go back in time, I could have done things in a different way without completely reducing my standard of living extremely drastically. I could have still had a lot of those experiences, but I could have controlled it. I would have saved more money and I would have started sooner. And if I would have just started sooner, the results that I could have gotten would have happened way faster, right? Like that is just what it is. If we understand what compound interest is, and Albert Einstein gets credit for saying this. I don't know how true or not true that is, but the quote is, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it, right? And so the idea of compound interest is you need 2 things. You need time and you need consistency working in your favor. So the more time you have, the more compounding is going to work into your benefit. You have this long-term kind of hockey stick curve, right? It's the longer you wait, the longer it takes to hit the uptick in the hockey stick curve, right? So we want to start sooner to take more advantage of that. If you start sooner, what happens is you're going to get more value out of every dollar that you save, right? And that's the amazing part. But that said, here's the other thing I want to say to this is that, I'm a big believer we shouldn't be starting off and thinking we need to work for 40 years to be able to hit retirement, right? Like retirement, that word drives me crazy. I use it because it's really good from an SEO perspective and from like an algorithm perspective. But the bottom line is I think we need to be thinking about financial freedom, right? Financial independence, right? That's all retirement is when you have enough money to be able to not have to go to work, right? That's what it's all about. So if we're thinking 40 years out, we're thinking too long down the road, and you shouldn't be doing that. And so yes, we want to start sooner. That's going to help us accomplish our goals faster. But the first thing is by starting sooner, that's going to get, kind of kick the ball and get the game going. Now, number 2 is trying to take too much risk too quickly. I talk about this a lot. The greatest myth, and I really feel strongly about this, is the greatest myth being told in the financial space is the younger you are, the more risk you can take. And I get it. I understand why people say that on the surface is because if you're young, you have time to make up for losses. But think about it this way. Risk is simply a function of chance of loss, right? That's it. Go look it up. The definition. If you go, taking on risk means you're increasing your chance of loss. So only in the financial space do we coach people to say, hey, if you want to increase your chances of success, you've got to increase your chances of loss. It makes no sense. It just doesn't. And so what we want to do is we want to start, and I've done a video on this called the Life 180 Pyramid, and you can check it out above, but what we want to do is we want to start off and go back to number one. We want to start soon. And what I was talking about needing time and consistency for compounding, we want to make sure that we're saving before we invest. We want to build a foundation of financial security before we go take a bunch of risk. So the biggest mistake, and I want to also add this to it, is the big challenge with any kind of financial strategy by taking on so much risk too early is the fact that, yeah, it can feel really good for a decade, but when the market goes down, if you don't have your financial life designed properly, if you don't have enough safe money, what happens is you end up making bad behavioral decisions with your money, or investor behavior decisions with your money. And that's why most people are underperforming the S&P 500 in their investment strategies, is because of the fact of investor behavior. So, and they're having to make these bad investor behavior decisions because of the way that they've got their financial life set up. They don't have enough savings. They don't have the financial foundation of their life built properly. And so they're not able to behave like a sound investor, right? And so that is the biggest thing. Before you go take on too much risk, make sure you set your financial foundation up so you could be a sound investor. All right, now that we got that out of the way, let's get into number three. And that is, mistake number three is not understanding what you are investing in. Unfortunately, I see this happen time and time again. People are buying products, they're investing in vehicles, they're saving money in different places, and they don't understand the benefits and the consequences of having your money in different types of asset allocations, in different types of products, in different types of funds. And the bottom line is, if you don't understand what you're putting your money in, you can't measure what role that account is playing in your life. Because remember, there are no good investments or no bad investments. They're just, is it right for you or is it wrong for you? And does it fit what your goals and objectives are? And if you don't understand the answers to those questions, well, then you're never going to be successful. And the only way to really understand the answer to those questions is if you do your research and truly understand what you're putting your money into. It's why I'm super passionate, because I love life insurance. Everybody who watches this channel understands I love properly designed whole life insurance as a financial foundational component of everybody's financial life, or most people's financial life. That said, I've seen whole life policies that are horrible. That said, I see a lot of people out there selling index universal life like it's whole life insurance on steroids, like it's got all these benefits because it's got more growth, but it's actually taking on more risk. And you know, it's a different video, I guess, if you want to go learn more about that. But I'm a big believer we need to understand what we're putting our money into and all of the moving parts. Read the fine print, understand the role that that asset plays in your personal financial goals and objectives before you do anything with it. If it takes a little more time, it's worth it. Do your research. The mistake number 4 that I see people make has nothing to do with money at all, and it has everything to do with you and your personal growth. And the fact that most people don't have a personal growth plan in place. Personal growth is your knowledge, it's your skills, it's your network, it's the people you surround yourself with, going to events, reading books, getting involved in masterminds, doing stuff like that. They always say your network is your net worth, right? Like, and I can speak to this very, 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 very cleanly, because I can tell you my life started to change when I started getting involved in events. My wife will tell you, she picks on me, up until the time I was 30, 29, maybe almost 30. The only books I had read were Cliff Notes to get through college and to get through high school, and poker books, because I was obsessed, you know, with being the best poker player in the world at one point in time. Those were the only books I had read. When I started reading self-development books and reading Think and Grow Rich and 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I read a book called Essentialism and Good to Great, and like I could go on and on and on about the books that I read right out of the chute that just like changed the way that I saw the world. That was the starting path. If you look at the back of every Life 180 shirt that I have, that when you see me on the videos wearing my Life 180 t-shirt, on the back of that shirt, there's a little delta sign. The delta sign stands for change, right? So, and I have a statement that says, change your thinking, change your actions, change your life, because of the fact that we all have a life that we want to live, but our life that we live is dictated by the actions that we take in life. Our actions lead to our lifestyle, but our actions are created by the thinking that we have in our mind, right? Our thinking leads to our actions lead to our lifestyle. So it all has to start with thinking, and what leads to our thinking? The people we surround ourselves and the information that we consume. Now you're here, you're watching this video, you're consuming this content for a very specific reason, I hope, whatever that is to you. But what I would say is the reason people struggle with their money is they're not intentional enough. That's why I created Life 180, Living Intentionally for Excellence, LIFE, Life 180, turn the results around in your life. And what I'll say to this is that you need to come up with a plan that is just consistent. Read books, start going to events, commit, invest in yourself. I know it may sound weird spending a couple grand to go to an event and travel. I know it may sound weird spending money to get into a group of people, but I promise you, those investments that I've made for me have far outweighed any other investment that I've made in any other asset, whether it's real estate, whether it's a stock, whether it's a business. A lot of those businesses, a lot of those opportunities, the investments that have been the best, never would have come about had I not invested in myself and my personal growth, leading to masterminds, leading to events, leading to masterminds, and getting involved in groups. So make sure you come up with a plan to invest in yourself and your knowledge on a consistent basis, and be a person who is committed to personal growth. Now, mistake number 5 is really easy and doesn't even take much of a description, and that is taking on too much consumer debt, toxic debt. Now, I'm a believer. The only thing I want to be really clear about this is I'm not anti-debt. I am a believer in utilizing debt when it's utilized for growth, right? Like if you had to take on debt to go get into a mastermind, if you think there's going to be a rate of return on the other end of that mastermind, well, then that can be fine, right? But taking on debt, toxic debt with credit cards to take a vacation, no bueno, right? And so those are the kinds of things to think about. Debt to invest in a business that's going to get a bigger return, okay, maybe. I'm not saying yes, but I'm saying maybe, right? And so these are the things that we need to think about. So consumer debt, toxic consumer debt, high interest toxic consumer debt, debt that is used to increase our lifestyle versus debt being utilized as an investment to build something and create value and create growth. That's the biggest difference in good versus bad debt. So if you have any questions, make sure you comment in the comment section below. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell, that way you get notified every time I launch a new video. As always, till next time, have a blessed, inspirational day, and we'll talk soon. See ya.